What if it was less about not drinking and more about being the woman you want to be? Wouldn't that feel better? Hi, my name is Holly Prevo, a former heavy drinker who started her own Sober Uprising and everything in her life up-leveled. On the Sober Uprising, we tell stories of finding freedom from alcohol on our own terms, making it our best power move to get the life we want. I'm so glad you're here. Let's go. So today I am joined by my friend Whitney, who we'll get into it, but we connected at an event about a year ago. She is the co-founder of Women Who Roar and the creator of the School of Sexual Sorcery. So this is going to be a saucy episode. I am so excited. Hi, Whitney.
Hi, it's so great to see you again, Holly.
So good to see you. I know we've been trying to schedule this, but it always happens at the right time. So I'm so glad to be here with
aligned.
you. It
feels right today.
Awesome. I wanted to have you on for a couple of reasons. One, I just love you and getting to know you more. 3, I guess, getting to know you more. 2, you had commented like, hey, I'm sober. And I was like, I remember being like, oh my gosh, congratulations, like really cheering you on. And you're like, kind of have it accidentally. And like, I'm here. It's not like a thing. And then also talking a little bit about sex and sobriety, because I know a lot of women can feel a lot of nerves around like, I'm usually had drinks. So would love to just dig into all those things.
Yeah, I would love to share and chat about that.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to tell me a little bit about how long you've been sober and what kind of brought that on.
Sure. I always say accidentally sober, or it'll be 10 years in April of 2024. Right now, at the time of this recording, it is January 2024. Yeah. So I'm coming up on a full decade of accidental sobriety. And my relationship with alcohol started, I think, differently than what I feel like is a lot of people's experience with alcohol, of the people I've talked to. I grew up in a family that did not drink. My grandparents were sober. I saw my mom drink wine at dinner occasionally. I'd never, take that back. I've seen my dad drink wine sometimes. I've never seen any of the formative adults in my life intoxicated ever. I'm 39. I've never seen them intoxicated. So my impression of alcohol was that it's something that adults drink with dinner. And as I became an adolescent and started approaching college and learned about college culture in America at the time that I went to school, I learned that alcohol is also something that you just partake in when you are in your late teens, early 20s, because that's just what everybody does and it's fun and everybody does it. So I did. I started drinking when I think I had my first drink when I was, I'll say 19 was the first time that I got truly intoxicated. And I had so much fun. Can I swear on your podcast, Holly?
Yes, please.
Amazing. I had so much fucking fun. I loved who I was. I felt so uninhibited. I was hilarious. And I thought, okay, well, this is part of my life now. And it wasn't ever anything threatening to me. It didn't detract from my life that I could tell. It wasn't something that I enjoyed when I was drinking it. I didn't like the taste of alcohol. I didn't like drinking, but I liked who I was when I had been drinking.
Yes.
And that continued until my late 20s. I would classify myself as a reluctant binge drinker. I drank not frequently, but when I did, there was no in between. I was either sober or I was 3 sheets. Completely gone. I had a very low tolerance. It didn't take me much, but there was no nuance in it for me. And that continued until my late 20s. I got married. I graduated from college. Well, not in that order. I graduated from college, got married, went to graduate school. And it was when I was in graduate school that I became pregnant with my son and very easily released alcohol for the duration of my pregnancy and nursing journey. And then through some things that we'll get into, I'm sure, in this podcast, I just never resumed it.
Interesting. Never.
No. And I never will now. It's become something that I've chosen.
I love it. So it sounds like you kind of came from a healthy perception of alcohol, right? Your parents drank maybe at dinner, nobody got drunk, but it wasn't also
Yes.
shamed. It wasn't like, so this
I had,
healthy vision.
yeah, the longer I've been sober, the more I think that there really isn't a way to have a truly healthy relationship with alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
but there are ways to have non-toxic relationships with it. And I would say that my upbringing modeled for me non-toxic relationship with alcohol. And I have been with functional alcoholics, and there really isn't a way that I have found or that I have identified to have a healthy relationship with it other than what I saw modeled for me. That's really been the only model of that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. And I love you. You're so like intentional with your words, right? You talk about like being accidentally sober and like reluctantly a reluctant binge drinker. Like when you say about a reluctant binge drinker, what made you say it was a reluctant?
I think if there had been another way to become the person I thought I could only be when I was drinking, I would have chosen that. And the only means that I had found to find it at that point was via consumption of alcohol. So it's something that I did as a means to an end, but not because I enjoyed the process. I think there are some people who love wine, they love cocktails, and that's wonderful. And it's a way that they experience pleasure and joy. I wasn't one of those people.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So you didn't like, and it's so funny you say that because I remember it was like so clear. I was at like a friend's house in college and we were drinking red wine and I hated it. But I was like, I need to learn how to drink red wine because I'm going to need it to be an adult. I'm going to need to go to like social events and business dinners and I'm going to need to do it. And I forced myself to do it. And then I loved it.
My mind is blown. I had a similar experience that I don't ever think about. But when you said that, I remembered when I turned 21, I realized, oh, I'm an adult now. I can drink and I hate it. I need to learn how to like wine. And I had a friend go with me to a bar explicitly to order a glass of wine so I could force myself to condition myself to drink it.
Yeah.
How stupid. No, you don't have to like wine. It's not a requirement for being an adult.
Yeah, it's like, oh wait, we don't have to do that. That's what like everybody told us. That's what we saw.
I know.
I love it. If you're not watching and listening, when he was cute, she was just like, oh my gosh, that was me too. Because it was, and I remember being like, I'll develop a taste for it. It's an acquired taste. And I did because like I still love the taste of a really good red wine, but like I remember being like, I don't like this.
I feel like the word accidental sobriety is really important in my case because I never did love alcohol. I never did develop the taste for it. It was an easy thing for me to give up and an easy thing for me to realize, oh, I get to be this person and an even more amplified version of the person I thought I was when I was drinking, completely sober.
Yeah.
And I don't have to drink alcohol to do it. Sold. And I know a lot of people for whom the transition and the choice is not anywhere close to that easy. And so I don't presume to be able to fully empathize or understand the journey of someone who does have more of a tenuous relationship with alcohol than I did when I accidentally chose sobriety.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. That's something I'm always really clear on is that like this what I do in this platform is not for everybody, right? There are people that need like dedicated support and rehab, and that I will always be a huge proponent. But it's also kind of like, I mean, you work a lot with like sexuality. It's also, I think, can be like a spectrum, right? Like you didn't need it and drink, but there could be people in the middle or in the end. And so like, so I love this story of like accidental, because I think you're the first person I've talked about that was like, I didn't love it, but I did everybody does love the feeling, which is why we continue to do it. Or we get something out of it.
Yes. I think everything we do in life is for selfish reasons, right? we're all ego driven at some level because we have to survive. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Well, tell me, and I'd love to get into this, like being this person without it. 'Cause that's what like you've stepped into, but like, your son's born, maybe even, after you feel like it's safe and breastfeeding or whatever that looks like, did the thought ever even like come back up, or was it just like it never happened after you had your son?
It's interesting, Holly. So at the time when my son was born, I was married to my now ex-husband, who I feel like both of us have grown so much through our journeys in parenthood and through our, very strained at the end of it marriage, and now our very healthy collaborative divorce, in which we're both thriving as individuals and certainly thriving together as a co-parenting team. And I'm so grateful for that. But if I take myself back to the time when I was a new mom, it did come up. There's a lot of wine mom culture that's infused into our society. A whole lot of, oh, I need wine, especially once you become a mom. There's so little support for parents in this country. And alcohol provides a welcome outlet for a lot of, especially mothers. It's a big, big load to carry. So I won't say that I didn't ever consider it, but I also had what I believe to be the blessing now of being with someone who did have a drinking problem, but it wasn't diagnosed until later. He was, super, super functional. He didn't realize he had one. I didn't realize he had one. It was functional to the point that I meet a lot of people who drink beyond what he was drinking then. And still, if anything impacts your ability to focus and prioritize the things that are truly important to you, that's addictive.
Yeah.
So I had this juxtaposition of my chosen sobriety. And by the time I even would have met my criteria for being able to reintroduce alcohol, after I was finished pregnancy, after I was finished nursing, my son was 2.5. I'd already been sober for almost 3.5. I can't do math, Holly. 3.5 years?
Yeah.
Somebody out there put the numbers. Almost 3.5 years. It was something that would have been a lifestyle adjustment to reintroduce.
Yes.
And there was one time that I tried alcohol and I decided, like, I don't actually want to do this. I want to opt out of this. This isn't something I desire being part of my life. But it was a combination of things that at this point in my life, I see as gifts. There was this commitment to being a pristine vessel to the best of my ability for my child during pregnancy, and to not drink during my nursing journey. And then I also had this experience of being partnered with someone who was struggling with this substance in ways that I didn't understand. So I sort of had some layers pushing me toward just never picking it up again. It became anti-tempting.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like you said, those layers, and I love what you said is like, you would have to have made a lifestyle change to add it back in for something that never gave you that much of a benefit in the first place. So you're like, why would I? But to your point, society and new mom culture, like it can be very sexy to buy back in.
Yeah. And I think as women, and one of the reasons that I created Women Who Roar with my business partner is because women desire being fully expressed. And they desire feeling like there aren't limitations on them and how they can behave and what they can say and how they can act. And that's just the essence of being a woman, and being in your feminine, for all humans, is being in your expression. And I think alcohol gave me my first taste of being in my full expression. So it was a journey learning how to get to the point of being in my full expression without any substances, and just finding that within myself. But there's so much more in the absence of what you think you need to have it. You can be so much bigger and so much more expressed.
Whitney, you just like dropped just like the mic there. I love that thought of like, like women naturally want to be fully expressed. And when we don't know how to do that, alcohol can like help us give the courage sometimes to do that. And, or even a little bit of like the excuse, or like, oh, I was drunk. Like, I don't typically get on a table and dance, or I typically don't.
Oh my God.
want to do XYZ, but like drunk, you know, when I'm drunk, I do, oh my gosh, but otherwise I'm just a good little house, you know, whatever. And I'm just like this perfect. And so I think that's like really, it's an interesting insight.
That's totally my story. Absolutely. I was the girl who wanted to dance on the tables and like be as close to naked as possible, just because that's how I felt free and wonderful. And not because I necessarily wanted attention. And I also judged women who did that. So alcohol to me became a convenient excuse for being the version of too much, the deviant inner voice.
Yes, the version of too much, right? You get mouthy a little, you voice your opinion, all
like
these
start
things.
Fights with like men who mistreat your friends.
You're totally, it's like, so, and I don't know why I've ever like put that together. And so I love you for bringing this up, is because it is like so true. Because it's like, we're seeking this like freedom that alcohol gives us. And I do think it's part liquid courage, which doesn't last, but also a little bit of like, I can use this as a scapegoat to not get, because I'd rather get judged for being drunk than getting judged for being sober on a table.
Yeah.
Like, or wanting to be naked or XYZ. Like I'd rather blame the alcohol for that.
I don't think that I knew until about 6 or 7 years into my sobriety that what I thought I was getting from alcohol was just the surface. And that I feel like a lot of women don't know that there's an alternative, that they can feel the way they want to feel when they're drinking without drinking, and in a way that doesn't bring shame, and in a way that they feel empowered by, and that connects them more deeply to themselves in a way that alcohol moves them further from. But nobody, I mean, thank goodness there are women like you doing the work you're doing, because that's a message that's becoming more public. There are alternatives to alcohol. You get to feel free. You get to feel fully expressed. You get to be in your power, and you don't have to drink to do it.
Yeah, no, I feel I am so much more alive and free and mouthy and energetic than I ever was when I drank. Right. Like, and like, I feel good about it. Right. I feel conscious and I wake up and I'm like, it's not like, oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? But we don't know until we try it, until we experience it.
And there's something empowering about taking accountability for your actions and your behavior. And like women who roar is a clothing optional space. And there's no shame in that. It's a clothing optional space because it's a space where women can wear whatever the fuck they want, inclusive of nothing at all, and be safe and seen and celebrated. And when you give your sexual power and your expression and your radiance over to the care of a substance like alcohol, like I'm gonna indulge in this so I can have that, you're giving the power to something that actually belongs to you.
No, I love you talked about like giving your power, like you want this power and you give it away to a substance. And you also mentioned something about, talking about your partner, like when you're taking something that's impacting what you want in the day to day, that is also addictive. And so it's just this theme of like giving this internal power that we have to a substance, and so easily, and it's socially accepted.
It's very socially accepted, and it's seen as normal. It's seen as anything that is not that is what is uncommon and abnormal. So to be in your natural state of radiance and full expression and turn on and all of those delicious, juicy qualities we all have as feminine beings, to be in that naturally is deviant, but to be in that state because you've been drinking is widely accepted in our culture.
Absolutely. And, I want to get into kind of the embracing your sexuality and the sexual freedom and alcohol. But I want to like first maybe share, if you can think back, because I love that you stepped into this place of like, I drank because I wanted to feel a certain way. And now I can feel a certain way without the drink. How did you really realize that and like step into that place of knowing that?
I think that for me, giving birth was an incredible awakening. It was the first time that I felt truly embodied. And for anyone who has given birth, every experience is different. Mine felt both simultaneously as in my body as I've ever felt, and as out of my body, out of control, surrendered as I've ever felt. And I think that for a long time after giving birth to my son, I was grieving that the only way to experience that was in birth. And that's not something you can just do all the time. I didn't know if I wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
And I wasn't drinking, and I just kind of felt unenlivened, not enlivened. And it wasn't until after my ex-husband and I decided to divorce and I started doing deep, deep healing work, energy healing work, and going to workshops, and I, by divine intervention, rediscovered dance and started doing dance and started connecting to my body, that things started to shed and unblock, and I started to feel into the messages that my body had been sending me all of my life, and that I had been ignoring and shutting down for the past, at least 10 years at that point. And tuning back into those, I developed, first of all, this appreciation, but also this powerful connection to my body, and doing things that were outside of my comfort zone, like teaching about sexuality and pleasure. That's not something that I wanted to do initially. That was incredibly edgy and taboo, and doing that publicly would mean my grandma would know, and I resisted it for years because I didn't want to do that. That was too uncomfortable. But when you find your edges and you can get comfortable with the edge of what is comfortable, you expand what is comfortable for you. So it was through encountering edges and reconnecting to my body. And it's manifested, like the dividends have been incredible.
I love that. Those, like, and like to your point, it's like our edges grow the more we like edge them, right? Like you step into dancing, okay, that's not as scary, and I'm gonna go in public, or I'm gonna talk about sexuality, like all these pieces. And then also to your point is it's, a lot of the work, How I Met You through Tracy Litt, right, is like your body, like quit thinking from your neck up and like plug in. What do you need? What does it feel like? And then acting on that.
Alcohol, I feel like, robs you of your opportunity to cultivate your power from your own courage. So liquid courage, it's what it's known as, right? But you don't receive any benefit of your acts of courage when you're drinking. The alcohol gets it. But when you are courageous, sober, you learn that you can trust yourself to do bigger, scarier things. And then other things that you once thought were scary become less so. And your edges just grow and grow and grow. And what you're capable of and believe in yourself to accomplish grows with them.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. And the liquid courage, and then also like dulling your intuition, right? Like it just, like, you cannot be in tune with your body and your intuition when you're drinking. Like you just can't, like, because there's literally another spirit inside of you moving, and like what is that? I don't know what it just, and it's this, you can't do both.
And I can feel, I shouldn't prescribe what other people can do. I can feel the energy just feels weird when I'm with people who are drinking, which isn't to say I don't hang out with people who drink, because so many people do. But you can feel the difference in someone who is confronting their edges on a path of chosen sobriety and, navigating the challenges that life throws when you're not turning to substances to numb those for you, and someone who hasn't had those blinders removed yet. Because I don't think it's something most people are even choosing consciously. I wasn't choosing it consciously. You were choosing it to feel better. I was choosing it to feel better. But alcohol is a depressant. I mean, physiologically, what it does to us is it's a depressant. Energetically, it's a vibrational lowering substance. Marijuana is too, but we don't feel that way when we're on it.
It's sneaky. It's insidious, right? Like you're like, oh, it gives me courage. It makes me feel good. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh no. Like the anxiety, and then like the stress and the regret, and then not sleeping and all this stuff. And you're just like, oh, I got tricked again.
Yes.
It's like feeling.
It takes you out of your body when what we're all seeking is to feel more deeply in our body.
And I think what's, so it's, and this liquid courage and talking about that is it's like, I don't know, it's not even courage. It's like, I don't know what it is. Cause it's like, you don't do the things you ever say you're going to do, right? You don't feel courageous, but for that split second, you can talk yourself into it.
Permission, I think maybe.
Yeah. Maybe
liquid permission.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to hear, you do a lot of work on women embracing their voice, their power, their sexuality. And I know that I've had conversations with women that are like, oh my gosh, I've never had, or not, maybe never, like we rarely have like sober sex. And like, I'm curious, is that something you see in the community you work with, or is that something you see?
It is something that I am aware of. I will say I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
So in the work I do, we don't focus on sobriety as
right.
Sobriety is really not a focus of mine, but I think it is important because the events that I hold are substance free. So they are sober events, but not because it's exclusionary of alcohol, but because it is intended to cultivate this deeper connection with yourself. I know a lot of humans, not just women, but men, women, who often are sexual when they're drinking and who may need alcohol or feel like they need alcohol to be as vulnerable as sex requires someone to be. That to me is more of an indication of your level of comfort with those edges than it is of your actual dependency on alcohol to engage in vulnerable situations. So, but in cultivating your comfort with being uncomfortable and vulnerable and learning how to do that from a place of safety and empowerment at the pace that you can meet yourself, that's what alcohol is providing, is like a safety blanket by dulling the threat, by dulling the risk of safety that's perceived in extremely vulnerable moments.
Oh, I think that's so beautiful, because what I'm hearing is it's not about the sex, right? Like it's just about the vulnerability. So whether it's a conversation or a decision or like being, with somebody sexually, it's like more of the fear of vulnerability, not the sexual act per se.
That's my understanding of it.
Yeah.
I have always preferred sex sober. I, first of all, would get too drunk to like enjoy much of anything that I was drinking. So like, I don't know what that's like to like sex while intoxicated. I could see how it could be nice, but like my threshold for alcohol consumption was always very, very low. But I get the sense that it is that permission granting aspect that alcohol provides that gives people a lowered sense of inhibition and the feeling that, they are sexy, they are desirable, they can act and engage in the ways that they would otherwise judge themselves for. It's not the alcohol, it's what's under it.
Yeah. Which is all of it, right? That's like what's underneath, like why we do it in the first place, why we overdrink or why we over medicate or do too much weed or whatever our thing is. There's so many things out there. But I love this idea of like we use it as a permission slip to escape our inner, like knowing our freedom, what we really want. And we're like, oh yeah, but if I can use alcohol, like it's not me putting myself out there to be shamed or embarrassed or visible.
That it's that permission, it's that safety. And if there's anything I want women to know when it comes to sexuality and sobriety, it's that sex can feel not only safe and hot in the ways that it feels when you're drinking, but it can feel deeply healing and life-changing.
Yeah. Well, and I know, talking about kind of, women who roar, really about like women showing up in their purest expression of themselves, whatever that looks like, right? We're all so different. Like there's not the one way to do that. We all feel differently. So like, how do you encourage, if somebody was listening, like, how do you encourage women to even start to envision what that could look like? Because I think so many of us are so like tight and constricted and been raised very certain way. Like, we can't even imagine what a full expression would be like.
Yes, absolutely. And there is so much objectification of full expression that we do have capacity to, that we are presented, like porn, that's performative, but that's not full expression. Strip clubs, that's performative, but that's not full expression. I would suggest for any woman wondering what her full expression even is, to get comfortable with her own body. An easy practice to do that is to find a space where you can be completely by yourself, where you're not, there's zero chance of being interrupted. And I would have a pillow nearby. So if you want to scream, you can scream into a pillow. Eliminate any barriers to unleashing yourself that you may encounter. Turn on music, close your eyes. And whether you want to start on hands and knees with just little movements or standing and swaying, just let your body move, and then don't think about how it's moving, but pay attention to how it feels when you're moving. And let each breath, once you get into it, let each breath sound. So allow your voice to express. Have a pillow there so you don't shut down because you're afraid of being too loud. Use the pillow. Be fucking too loud.
Yeah.
And this is something that will introduce you to where your edges are of your expression. And then from there, Women Who Roar is growing. It's transformational. Find spaces where you feel safe and can be fully expressed. For me, I have found those spaces in going to kink clubs where there is no such thing as too much. You follow these guidelines, you follow this, these consent procedures, have at it. And there's no judgment. Find spaces where there is no judgment, where you get to push your limits of what is comfortable to you, and you can discover what your expression is, what the flavor of it is. That was mine. I'm not saying, oh, everybody go to your neighborhood like kink club and sign up for a membership. Find whatever feels right to you.
Yeah.
Find your spaces where you feel anti-repression vibes and spend more time in them.
Yeah. I love that. And if you're maybe listening, you're like,
I have another big one, Holly.
Do it. Drop it, Whitney. I need it.
Take inventory of the people who trigger you. Take inventory of the women you are triggered by. Maybe you see them on Instagram and you judge what they're wearing. Maybe you see someone dancing. I'm calling my former self out here. I have been I'm a reformed other women judger, because I would judge in other women the things I wasn't allowing to be fully expressed in myself. Pay attention to the things you judge in other people and let them be the mirrors to yourself of the things that you are not acknowledging you desire.
What you said is so important. So what I heard is like the exploration, right? Just be with your body, explore your own edges in the privacy of your own home, right? Put yourself in judgment-free spaces. Again, you may be listening and you're like, I don't even know what kink means. Like, this is so far out there, but that does not mean like, we're not talking that, right? We're talking, maybe it's just like a safe group of friends, or maybe it's like self-exploration, whatever that looks like, of a judgment-free. And then I love this idea of like, who makes you uncomfortable and why do they make you uncomfortable? Because to me, that's always in other ways, right? You're like, oh, I don't like that. And you're like, why do you not like that? What is that saying? What do you want? Or what are you missing? And I think what's so key about everything you're talking about is if you find yourself, and maybe, maybe you're somebody who drinks more than they want to drink and you're fully expressed, right? But I think this is a great indicator of, I'm drinking a lot. Where am I not fully expressed? Am I not using my voice at work and in my marriage and my sexuality? Like, what is that? Because and then am I drinking to help that?
Wow. That's profound.
Because I think that's like so true for a lot of women.
I think so too.
Permission slip.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's curiosity, it's judgment-free, it's data, it's exploration. And again, all of our edges because I'm sure your edges, as you said, you're like, I can't talk about sex. My grandma will listen. Like your edge grows my edge grows. I think like our edges grow. And so it's like, there's no judgment of where you're at. But I think if you are somebody who is feeling stuck and probably a little resentful and probably a little mad and angry, you're probably not expressing in some way.
Yes. And it's not your fault. This is conditioned into all of us. We're conditioned. We are the products of generations of conditioning as women who had to be small and be quiet to survive.
Yeah.
And I feel like the generations on the planet now are rewriting that narrative. And it is confronting. It does feel scary because it's violating this very ingrained learned survival skill, which thank God for it, but it's not serving us anymore, we don't need it.
Well, to your point of finding safe, judgment-free places, right? Starting out just with your home, lock your doors to your kids, your spouse, your dogs don't come in, like feeling safe because you can't explore without creating safety in your body. So I love this idea of, or find places or people you can explore, so I love this idea of like, this isn't like, it makes sense we're here. That's why I'm always like, it makes sense we're drinking more than we should. Like we've been taught that, like there's no, like we should, like it makes sense and we get to do better because it's not serving us. I'm just repeating what you said because it was beautiful, but I think it's like really important.
Yes, it's no one's fault that they turn to alcohol.
Yeah, totally.
It's no one's fault that they turn to alcohol.
Yeah, because it's like we've been taught that it's everywhere, like the marketing, it's just the mommy. I don't have kids, but the mommy wine culture. Every time I see it, I just like want to like scream because I'm like, no, like that's not a good service to anybody.
No, you don't. And there is validity to the needs behind the mommy wine culture.
Yes.
The mommy wine culture is there to provide relief and expression and reprieve to a demographic that is not offered it otherwise. It's a cry for help and more support and more replenishment, more opportunity to pour into themselves as women.
Yeah.
That is manifested in escape from what doesn't offer them that.
Yeah. So to your point, like how do you find that release, that reprieve, like how do you find that outside of out? And it can be trial and error, right? And you're going to slip and you're going to go back and that's going to work and it's not, and you're going to all these things, but it's to your point, like there is a need for the things that we think we're going to get from alcohol for all of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll end with 2 questions, but would love for you to share a little bit more just about Women Who Roar and, the School of Sexual Sorcery, if somebody's interested or just kind of curious what you do in this world.
I'd love to. Women Who Roar is a transformational ceremony for women. It is a space where women can safely express to whatever degree they desire in ways that they can't anywhere else in their life. And it is a space where they will be seen and celebrated and received in that expression. The women who've come through have experienced life-changing transformations beyond just that night. It's changed how they show up in their relationships and at work. And it's helped them feel more in touch with their body. Right now it's based in Atlanta. It's a 3-hour ceremony that we do every few months here in Atlanta. We're growing into other markets. If you would like a Women Who Roar in your city, email me, team@womenwhoroarmovement.org. But it's a place where women can wear whatever the hell they want, say whatever the hell they want, be as loud as they want, be as like sexual in their movement as they want. And it's all celebrated. And that is incredibly healing to women.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And then School of Sexual Sorcery. School of Sexual Sorcery is my group program in which I teach women how to cultivate that connection to their body and how to invite transformative orgasms. I teach 5 types of transformative orgasms and how to have them alone or with a partner.
You're amazing, Whitney.
No, thank you.
You're amazing. You came and talked with our group. And I don't think this is an edge moment for me to share this because my mom's going to listen to this. But we were talking, it was so funny when you came to Powerhouse, we got like, Tracy gave us like vibrators and it was so funny because you were coming in and Taryn, who's my roommate, I was like, they're going to make us have a mass masturbation. And Taryn's like,
no, that would be so anti-safety.
Never. I think it's illegal. And Taryn's like, it's not illegal, Holly. I was like, it feels like it would be illegal in Florida. And she's like, they're not going to make us do that. But it was like, now it's like our standing joke. Like every like 6 months, I'll like text her. I'm like, remember that time you thought I was crazy and I thought it was illegal in the state of Florida to have like more than 50 people? Like it was so funny, but you were amazing. And I know you helped a lot of women, and the healing power of it, right? Like it's not, yes, it can like feel good, but there's healing power in owning our own sexual being, whatever that looks like.
And safety is really at the core of great sex. Safety is at the core of feeling fully expressed. Safety is the reason we turn to alcohol at the core of it, because we want to feel safe to have permission to be ourselves. If anyone is listening to this and is worried that is curious about Women Who Roar or School of Sexual Sorcery, and also feels that it would be a like guided group orgasm, that's not what I do. But I feel like my work here is to help women cultivate safety in themselves so that they can be fully expressed in all areas of their life.
I mean, is that not just like what it's all about?
Yeah.
It's honestly what all of us, I think, on this world that are trying to do important work are trying to do, right? Like, and it can look different ways. Like it can look up drinking, it can look like embracing your sexuality. It can look like a million ways, but it is like creating that safety in your body to like use your voice in your life.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it. I wasn't assuming, but I am glad you cleared that up in case somebody was like me and I was like, are they going to make us do this all together?
You're not the only one. I've heard that from and Tracy. For those of you who don't know of Tracy Litt, she is this incredible, masterful, transformative force who blew me away. That was my first introduction to her and her world. She invited me to be a guest speaker and facilitator at her Masterful Powerhouse last year. And I led a workshop called, I think, Transcendent. What was it?
I think it's like Transcendent Orgasms.
Transcendent Orgasms.
Yeah.
Or Orgasmic Transcendence, Transcendent Orgasms. And there wasn't a lot of detail provided about it on purpose. She intentionally told me, don't share this on social media. Nobody's going to know that you are the speaker until you get there. And I think that was because it would have triggered a lot of people. But was it triggering for you, Holly? What was your experience of it?
No, I think no, it was, I mean, I think I knew that wouldn't happen. I think it was just like starting, but I think it was like, it was informative. It was like empowering. It was something I think that to the point was like embracing your own sexuality to stand in power in other areas of your life. And like you did such a beautiful way of honestly, like also explaining our bodies, right? Like we're not taught like our bodies and how it goes. You know, you were like drew photos and we were like all like everybody was taking notes, right? Like, so that was really helpful. And I think what was so interesting to me is you're in this group of like, 80 women who are changing the world. And so many of us that were like, we don't really know what's going on, or we're not totally happy in our relation or sexually, or we want to try this and don't want to ask. Like everybody had some like, not everybody, like a lot of us had like some pause in owning our sexuality, right? Yeah. And these are women who doesn't even matter how much money they're making, but they're doing big stuff in the world. And it's still something I felt like people carried some shame around.
Yes, absolutely. I agree that no matter how powerful a woman is, none of us get this education.
No, I'm always like, wait, no, what's it? Like, it's crazy. We're not, I mean, even taught like tracking your cycle and menstruation and how you're feeling, like all these things that we're just not taught in our bodies. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can have some like education and power over what that before cycle looks like, all these things. Right. I thought you were phenomenal. I think a lot of us were nervous walking in, but also trusting that Tracy would never do anything. We also had this trust that like we knew, but also it's like, I can't talk about like this in front of somebody else. And I think it was your session. We did the whole, like with a partner, like ask, that was your session, right? That
yes,
you had us
asking, like, the receiving and requesting practice.
And that was like a very intimate thing to do with somebody. Like I had somebody I kind of knew, but we had to kind of say, this is how I would like to be touched to feel good. Right. And so like touching an arm or like a cheek, and nothing was like sexual, but it was intimate.
Yeah.
And like that, the thought of asking for something, it felt really good to like, because I think I was with Beth and she was like, I want like my arm rubbed. And like, that felt really good to do that, but it felt really uncomfortable to say, okay, well, I'd like my shoulders rubbed. So it's like, you just learned a lot about yourself. One, what you're doing with your partner, but also like probably what you're doing in the real world too.
It's all what happens in sex is a barometer of how you're showing up in life.
Yeah. I love that because I think it was really, and it is uncomfortable, right? And it was, but it was also really a sweet moment. And like and the intimacy you can have with another human that has nothing to do with like sex or attraction, but it still was like a kindness and like a love. And you did such a great job at like keeping it light and like normalizing everything and talking about how we name all the names. What was it, clammy or like all the names?
All the names like, that children are taught to call their genitals. Thank you. I receive your beautiful words. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so glad that you had that experience. And I also want to reflect and celebrate you in meeting your edges. I appreciate you sharing that you were afraid that I was going to make everyone strip down and masturbate together. Thank you for your honesty. And that you showed up anyway.
That's true. I was like, I guess, I don't know. It's all for my behind the good. We'll see what happens. I don't know. Like,
that's not what happened. But even just the practice, what you described, Holly, of being in a safe space, in a space where you knew this woman was leading you with integrity and would not do anything violating. You trusted her to bring me in and that I wouldn't do anything that was violating. You trusted this practice that you had autonomy over your body and could control what someone did with it. And that you confronted the edge of asking for what you wanted. And there was no threat, but you still met that discomfort. What you did in that practice was condition yourself to take on more discomfort. Because when we can take on more discomfort, there are fewer things that scare us and we become more powerful. So we become more fully expressed and we don't need things like alcohol to give us permission.
Yeah. Oh,
to be who we are.
Yeah. I thank you for like tying that in a little bow, because it is that piece of putting, like, to your point, putting yourself in judgment-free safe spaces, like people you trust, that you know you're going to be okay, and like you can explore those edges and go beyond and ask for what you need and know it's a safe place. That's huge. And you do have to go find those and be intentional and find women who roar or whatever group that does to create that.
Yes.
Like that's why we all go. That's why I went to my third powerhouse, right? It's a safe place. I felt I would trust any of those women with any of my darkest fears and, any of them, not even knowing them because of the place they're in, and to like have these moments to explore intimacy and sexuality or doubts or fears in a safe place. Like that is healing to do. And to do with other women is really, really, really healing.
So healing. Thank you so much for sharing, Holly.
Well, thank you. That was fun to like relive that. That was like, there was a lot of like, who's this Whitney? What's she going to do? So
yeah, I took a poll at the beginning of my workshop at Powerhouse, and I asked women to raise their hands if they were absolutely terrified to come into the room that day. And about half the hands went up. And then I said, and who has been looking forward to this workshop since you got your itinerary? Like the other half went up. And then there were some women who were like, I feel totally neutral. Like, welcome all. Y'all, welcome everybody. Proud of you all for being here.
Yeah. Whether you
there
were
a
terrified.
lot of people who were terrified. And I think that's always exciting to me when people do things that scare them. So I'm glad that not everyone in that room was comfortable.
No. Oh my God. And no, I do not. I think all of us were like, even if we were okay, like knew it would be okay, we're still just like, oh boy. That was pretty funny. Taryn loves that. She's like, it's not illegal. It's not a federal law. And I was like, I don't know. It could be. We don't know. Well, would love to, I'd hate to even go because that was such a good mic drop, but like 2 questions for you. One is if, I know that you accidental sobriety, it was something that didn't really serve you, but maybe if there's somebody who is drinking more than they would like to. And also they're like, maybe this is I'm not fully expressed. I know you gave a couple of other like suggestions, but anything else you would want to add on something to share with somebody that's in that place?
Actually, if I would love to connect with women if they are in that place. If you are in that place, I would love to hear your story and direct you to resources or practices or things that I can offer you individually rather than blanket it, because I think it is so individual. I can be found on Instagram at Pleasure Sorcery and at Women Who Roar, but there are a lot of other ways to connect with your body. But as far as answering your question, I think it really depends on the individual and her circumstances. And I'm open to, I'd love to connect with you if you desire sharing, and I'd love to support you.
Yeah. And we'll put, I'll put all this in the show notes so you know how to get hold of Whitney, the site, Instagram, all that. And yeah, I think to your point is like, there's all sorts of ways you can get in touch with your body. And so no matter what you're going with, that's a great start to know what your body's trying to tell you. Totally. And my last question is, what does soberish mean to you?
Oh, soberish. What does it mean to me? I am someone who abstains from alcohol at this point by choice. I choose not to drink. And the substances that I do partake in are all with intention for the purpose of enhancing consciousness and enhancing and amplifying me and who I am and broadening those edges. So soberish to me means abstaining from substances that lower my vibration, and being conscious and intentional in using the substances, if any, that enhance and amplify my vibration.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. That's beautiful. Whitney, it was so fun to like connect somewhat in real life, in person, and have this conversation. And I love the work you're doing. It's so important. And I will make sure everybody knows how to get a hold of you. And thank you for coming on and sharing your accidental sobriety story and so many great, inspiring stories about finding our fullest forms of expression.
It's been a delight. Thank you for having me, Holly. And thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you. If you loved this episode, which we hope you did, please leave us a review or share with a friend. And if you're ready to explore your own version of soberish, head over to soberishuprising.com. And remember, everything you want is on the other side of saying no to that drink.